boom, boom, and boom.
Yeah.
All right.
What's up, everybody?
Welcome to episode, here it is, 200 of the F Marks podcast.
I'm Jay.
And I am the brainless one.
Yeah.
200 episodes.
200 episodes, and we're still going strong.
Yes, we are. We are still the fastest growing podcast of two guys to talk about professional wrestling. Whoa.
Oh, you can't even say it. Great.
While drinking Monster energy drinks, because if the Monster doesn't get you, the brainless one will.
All the time.
Every time. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. A very interesting show we have going on. We have Survivor Series tomorrow, so we will be making our predictions for that. A very well-known couple in the wrestling industry announced that they are pregnant and expecting a child.
Yeah.
We're going to touch a little bit on this little situation with a bullying situation in AEW. We have a new WWE champion that was crowned this past week on Monday Night Raw.
Which has now shifted the Survivor, one of the main events for the Survivor Series, perhaps the main event of the Survivor Series.
No surprise that because this is the first time they've done that either. We'll get into that and any other news and notes that we have about professional
Well, and one thing that I did not mention before we started the show, but I think I want to briefly talk about a WWE Hall of Famer is having a comeback in the ring next week.
Awesome.
But not the wrestling ring.
Huh? What?
You'll understand once we get into it.
I guess so, because this is all news to me. Just like...
it won't be news to you. You'll be like, oh yeah, I knew that. I just forgot that it's next week. You know what? Since I already said it, since I teased it, let's talk about it. Mike Tyson is putting the boxing gloves back on, and he and Roy Jones Jr. are going to be fighting in an exhibition fight. Honestly, with the way I've been seeing Mike Tyson training, I think this is going to be an exhibition like Ivan Drago versus Apollo Creed. But we shall see.
First of all, that's well done, sir. You completely threw that curveball right by me, and I didn't even know what to do.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I'm excited for that. Mike Tyson's my favorite fighter of all time. And I'm a weird person, too, when it comes to, like, my fighters, because my favorite boxer of all time is Mike Tyson. Number two, you won't believe me when I tell you, Butterbean. I always loved Butterbean.
Hey, he brawl for all, baby.
He did. He beat Bart Gunn, who won the brawl for all.
Yeah.
Back at WrestleMania 14, I think, was when they actually had their
well, and the thing ironic about that is Mike Tyson was part of the main event of WrestleMania 14, and actually it was a thing that was brought up in an interview with Undertaker recently, where they're like, "Were you really ready to beat up Shawn Michaels if he didn't do the job?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, I kind of lied to Shawn over the years to not make him feel so bad, but yeah, I was ready to do whatever needed to be done if he wasn't willing to drop the title to Stone Cold." But the special enforcer for that match was Mike Tyson. And he brought a whole bunch of eyes, I think, that people weren't expecting. So,
and I'll tell you, that's incredible, too, because, like, two of the greatest boxers of all time, if you think about it, Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali both took part at WrestleMania. Because Muhammad Ali, wasn't he the special enforcer in the main event of WrestleMania 1?
He indeed was.
And Mike Tyson was the enforcer for the main event of WrestleMania 14.
Yeah.
And then we actually have arguably the greatest boxer of this generation.
Tyson Fury.
Tyson Fury, actually, yes, there was another one. I was actually thinking of more of on the lines of Floyd Mayweather when he fought the Big Show at WrestleMania a few years back.
You have been Omega. Yeah. What's up, Jessica? Thanks for tuning in. But
yeah, it's good. I think I'm excited for this. I love, as I said, I love Mike Tyson. You know, so
I mean, he looks like a beast in these workout videos. And hey, obviously, Roy Jones Jr. has been a heavyweight champion, a light heavyweight champion, a cruiserweight champion. He's been a champion in like every division. No slouch. He has been in the boxing ring more recently, but honestly, I think Tyson's power is going to overcome Roy Jones Jr.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I think with Roy Jones Jr. is possibly if he could get Tyson to tire himself out, which is what essentially happened when Tyson went against like Holyfield and what have you.
Mhm.
That's a way that Roy Jones Jr. could take Tyson, but I don't see it. But
Yeah, Tyson's gonna win this thing. I just hope it's actually just entertaining and not like his fights from like the '90s where he was knocking dudes out in the first round.
I enjoyed the fights when he knocked people out in the first round. I was like, you never knew what was going to happen in a Mike Tyson fight. That was always part of the fun.
There was that one dude that he fought in the '90s that he knocked out in like 50 something seconds. Who did when they first did the stuffed crust pizza from Pizza Hut, and the dude took the freaking pizza, like he hit himself in the face with the crust and all that stuff, and I'm like,
right.
All right, that's how you're gonna get your 15 seconds of fame.
What was that? Hurricane Peter McNeely?
I don't remember
Because
who that was.
McNeely was the dude who was like the first dude Tyson fought when he came back out of prison. So anyway, yeah, I feel that Tyson's going to win this fight. Roy Jones Jr. Has a strong chin, but I think Tyson wins this thing knockout within 5 rounds.
Okay,
That's my belief. So
that's good shit, pal.
yeah. So anyway, sorry for the curveball, but I thought of it like
That's good shit, pal.
because I believe the fight is 28th, which is a week from today.
I think so.
And since I will not be anywhere near this area, no podcast for me next week.
We might be getting a solo cast from the Brainless one.
Solo cast or a Hefe cast. Yeah, FNR Hall of Famer.
I kind of want to try it. I don't know why. I just want to try like a solo cast on my own next week, just to see how it goes. I mean, how bad could it be?
Yeah.
It could be pretty bad. But
They could be pretty bad. We'll see, though. Anyway, so there's that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, and then in other news, I don't even know how the hell we could segue from that. But anyway,
officially announced this week, WWE is going to Tropicana Field for the Thunderdome, and that's starting December 11th. This is just me. Does it feel wrong? WWE is going to Tropicana Field, but shouldn't Orange Cassidy be the person wrestling in Tropicana Field? I mean, Tropicana is the worst baseball field in the world. It's a piece of crap. But the fact that it's Tropicana, Orange Cassidy should be.
And from what I've gathered, this is going to be all the way up through like WrestleMania too. Like they're going to probably have WrestleMania at the Trop.
Hey, why not? Heck, I mean, honestly, if they put the wrestling ring, let's say, close to the pitcher's mound like they did at Muzzy Field in 1987, they could conceivably have fans like in the upper deck somewhere and keep them spaced out. Although WWE said something to the effect of, we don't see fans for quite a while. But one of the things that came out this week, we now have 2 coronavirus vaccines that have gone through all the testing in the United States and 90 to 95% effective. And they're looking to get a sort of waiver exemption to put it into market immediately. And I think they said they have 40 million doses. So you start getting that out. Maybe cross our fingers. We're not corona free, but not where we're at right now.
All I'm going to say is if this is the case and they actually do come up with a vaccine, I don't even care.
No, it's not if they come up with a vaccine. The vaccines have been approved. They've gone through human trials, but usually they have to wait several months. They're trying to get an exemption right now. Quite literally, they're going to start using this with people in the next week. And they're going to start with the elderly people and the people who are at high risk.
Yeah. Which is fine if that's the case, as long as the vaccine is ready to go for the Brainless one and for Cousin Jay, so that next October, when the Cruise of Jericho happens,
right?
Ole.
Yeah.
I want that more than anything else.
Yes.
I mean, as much as
I want the Cruise of Jericho badly. That.
There was somebody that's on the Cruise of Jericho that I really wanted to see too, and I can't remember who the hell.
Chris Jericho.
I mean, besides him, obviously, I want to see the goated more than goats have ever goated in history. Goat dumb.
Right.
But there was somebody else that was like really like I was like, holy shit, that person's gonna be on the Cruise. I'm like, I gotta get it.
Right. So
I'm excited for that. I wonder if Nicole will let me go. Oh, yeah. Hopefully.
of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of stuff like that, we had
Of stuff like that.
Speaking of AEW, then a very prominent person in AEW announced on Wednesday Night Dynamite that him and his wife are expecting a child. And that person happens to be AEW World Heavyweight Champion Jon Moxley, who is married to Rene Paquette, who is
Former great Rene Young.
And they're expecting their first child at some point. Very interesting way of him, announcing that he was going to be a father and everything. I thought that was kind of cool. I love Jon Moxley. He's one of my favorites.
I'm just putting it out there. I think it's ironic that all three members of the Shield are having children within a year, basically, of each other.
That's very
Good for them.
Is it more weird than the fact that the Bella twins became mothers
within a
a
day.
day of each other?
So
That's crazy. That's some good shit.
What's up, Lloyd? Thanks for tuning in again. We always appreciate it. But yeah, congratulations to Jon Moxley and Rene. It's first child for them, so I'm sure there's lots of anxiety, joy, and all that comes along with that.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm excited for it. I'm happy for him. Like I said, Jon Moxley is one of my favorites. Renee Young is an incredibly talented person, so I'm glad to see that this is all working out. And it's weird how things like that work out, where she gets let go by WWE and then becomes a mother.
Well, I don't think she was let go. She just didn't sign a new deal. She was like, yeah, I'm done.
But she has a 1-year no-compete clause, which I thought was rather interesting. And she's also coming out with a cookbook too, which I'm excited to see how that turns out.
Sure.
So, congratulations to Renee and the Mox.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a boy.
We'll see.
So we can have Jon Moxley Jr.
Right.
Yeah. Also, speaking of AEW, I say we touch base a little bit on the bullying situation that has alleged bullying situation. So, a former employee of AEW who was let go within the last couple of months claims that he was bullied by AEW's executive vice president Cody Rhodes and a former WWE Hall of Famer who is now a producer for AEW as well. I remember the dude's last name was Benson. That's all I remember. Okay. And he came out and he posted this long-winded explanation as to why it all went the way that it did. And he went into detail about how he couldn't even approach Cody Rhodes. He talked about how Cody Rhodes wasn't a big fan of his. Cody called him this big mark type of a thing. You're just a mark type of situation.
An effing mark.
And I guess every time he tried to, when he couldn't even post it on his LinkedIn that he worked for AEW. He couldn't even contact people and everything like that. And other people that were in his department and other departments that he was friends with for years before, joining AEW were allowed to do certain things like that. And then finally, when he finally got kudos for some of the things that he was part of for projects for AEW, he basically, he was just so happy because he was tagging and putting it on social media. And Cody caught wind of it and said, this is not good. So his boss basically got in his face and made him delete all of the social media posts. It was his 6'5" Hall of Fame boss, is all he said. And he had to delete all that stuff, and he got rid of his Twitter and everything. And he basically just came out and said, he posted all this stuff. He showed screen grabs of conversations he had with certain people who work for AEW, saying that stuff isn't all the stuff that he went through and everything.
Sure.
So it's interesting, and he's gotten a lot of support and everything from all this. And he said he wanted to post all this stuff because he doesn't know if he's going to survive. Not that he has coronavirus, but because with everything going on with COVID-19, he said, just in case this isn't, if I don't make it through this, I want people to know my story and everything.
If it's true, that certainly stinks. But I mean, it just sounds like if that is happening, that's like just an office workplace where it's like, I think almost every office has like somebody where you're like, I just don't like this person. But beyond that, I don't know. I don't know. I would need to see some corroboration with this. I'm not going to say what the guy's saying isn't true, and like the screen captures provide his side of things. What would be the reasoning for Cody? Like, oh, I just don't like him. Like, usually, I mean, Cody seems like an intelligent guy, and it seems like he's not going to just, I don't like you. It doesn't feel like it.
Well, my whole thing is that if this is an actual thing, and a lot of like wrestling pages, a lot of wrestling podcasts, and all this stuff is picking up on it. I mean, people like Ryan Satin are freaking, or Satin or whatever.
Satin.
Ryan Satin's even picking up on it, and all these big time wrestling writers and everything are talking about this thing. If you're Cody Rhodes, don't you go out there and nip it in the bud and be like, no, this is not what it is. It's just, this guy is delusional, stuff like that. You don't just you can't let this guy tarnish your company's name, especially because you're still kind of new at all of this and you're trying to compete with WWE. And it's like everybody knows about WWE and all their bad issues that they've had over the years and how Vince McMahon's a piece of shit and all that stuff. But if I'm Cody Rhodes, I'm nipping this in the bud. If I'm his 6'5" Hall of Fame boss, I'm definitely nipping this in the bud. And it looked like, after talking to you, it does seem like it could be Diamond Dallas Page, who is his boss.
The only thing that I'm not sure of with that 6'5" boss, it's like, I don't know if DDP is doing any producing work, backstage work. Now, Billy Gunn is a Hall of Famer and working backstage, and Billy Gunn's not quite 6'5", but sometimes when you're talking about somebody who's bigger than you, you think they're larger. So it's possible it could be Billy Gunn, it could be somebody else, but it definitely is kind of like if that went on, that's certainly a sucky workplace thing to happen. I'm not going to say that that's the entire environment, but it could be just for whatever reason that person rubs Cody the wrong way. I don't know.
I mean, it's possible that's the situation. But either way, don't you think if you're Cody Rhodes, you go out there and just nip it in the bud, like, hey, I don't have to deal with this. This is
but
all.
You can't respond to every accusation against you because, I mean, think about it. If our current president responded to every person who tweets to him on Twitter, what would he do with his life? Nothing.
He would just be tweeting.
He would just be tweeting. So, if there were a series of these things that came out, yeah, Cody would have to respond. But to me, if this is a one-off incident and you hear nothing else, either it's not true or it's just, again, two people that don't get along.
Right.
So.
And an interesting part about all of this was I was reading all the stuff to you about what was going on. And I remember trying to read it because like somebody had like, hey, a screen grab the whole conversation, all the things. He actually wrote it out in notes and then posted it on Twitter that way, as opposed to like just sending out like tweet after tweet after tweet and just having like one of those long-winded discussions that he could have had on Twitter. And when I went to click on the dude's profile, because to look at the screen grabs, and his profile is now private, so you have to he has to accept it.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thought. Now, he's not officially a Hall of Famer, but it's saying it could be Dustin. Dustin is about 6'5". He should be a Hall of Famer, and might be eventually, but and it could be perhaps this dude thinks Dustin's a Hall of Famer and he isn't. Donnie Brown Snow, you asked about Colt 45. We have not completely done away with the gimmick, but usually Saturdays after the podcast, Brainless One has places to go, so do I. So being slightly inebriated is not the greatest idea. As much as I don't care, like, all right, well, oh, it's only like, noon. No, I'm fine with that. But the Colt 45 is not gone. It's just not.
It's Brett Favre.
Right.
It's semi-retired.
So
it'll come out for special occasions.
It would have been nice to do it for the 200th episode, but I've got
an
awful lot of stuff going on that I need to attend to and be completely clear-minded for.
I do as well, actually.
So
I mean, that's kind of why. That's why we've kind of adapted the Monster Energy drink as our other unofficial spokes beverage of the FMX podcast. And bad Larry's like that.
And if you didn't tune into last week's episode, basically, I'm in the process of moving, and the podcast room will probably get back to looking somewhat what you're used to seeing in a few weeks. But I'm moving in about 4 weeks, and my house that I live in right now is on the market now to sell. So I had to take it down a lot of stuff. Like even this stuff, like once we're finished, I have to tuck away.
And I have a feeling that between today and when the new podcast room gets put together, that we will be having at least an episode of the podcast in the Brainless Dome.
Right. Yeah.
Just came out.
I like that. I like
The
it.
Brainless Dome. I wonder if Nicole will let me write that on the wall or something.
Right.
Welcome to the Brainless Dome.
Well, I mean, you could have it on the wall, or we could print it out. Yeah.
I can always have somebody make a sign for me too.
Right.
The Brainless Dome.
Yeah.
If she was tuning in, she would actually put in her 2 cents about it's a yay or a nay.
Yeah.
But
She's always there. She's always there.
yeah. Yeah. I kind of wanted to, speaking of the Colt 45, I would like to do it for our, the award show. Because nothing's better for me doing the show for the awards and the Hall of Fame and all that stuff when I'm a little 2 sheets to the wind and everything. I won't do the Edward 40 hands this
3
year.
sheets to the wind, baby. 3 sheets.
Oh, that's
yeah.
2 sheets.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I really just we could do sparkling apple cider. The only problem with that, Jessica, is I'm not an overly huge fan of apple cider, but it's a nice thought. I was thinking about for maybe episode 250 next year, we can get a little bit of the bubbly.
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
It's still a thing with Chris Jericho, and who knows with Chris Jericho? He might be onto 19 different things by then.
Probably will be.
Because it's Chris Jericho, so.
Right.
But I would like to bust out the F and Mark's Hall of Famer Billy D. Williams drink of choice, the Colt 45.
Oh yes, no doubt. So, yeah. All right. So that's that, and that's that.
Speaking of champions, we have a new WWE champion that was crowned on Monday night this week.
Yeah.
And I really want to go a little bit more into this too, because it just really rubs me the wrong way. Now, I could have saved it for the back end of the podcast, as you know, when we have our good and bad and this right here type of situation. But this is definitely something I really wanted to touch base on, because I'm really just getting pissed off about this. I really am. And I'll tell you, so anyway, so this past Monday we had a WWE Championship match between Drew McIntyre and the 14-time World Heavyweight Champion Randy Orton, and really not a big surprise for me. Drew McIntyre did go over on Randy Orton and became the new WWE Champion once again. Honestly, there's 2 parts about this that really upset me. Number one, you just had Drew McIntyre drop the title to Randy Orton when you knew that Roman Reigns was going to be Universal Champion heading into Survivor Series. You knew this. You knew this. You knew this. You knew this. What was the point of Randy Orton? Why? Is it to pad his statistics so he could drop the title a couple weeks later? Are you kidding me? And number 2, my other thought about this was, how many times now has it been where WWE changed either the WWE or the Universal Champion heading into Survivor Series for their champion versus champion match. I know last year they didn't do it because they had 3 separate title matches because Adam Cole fought Pete Dunne for the title last year. Brock Lesnar defended the title against, I don't remember who he fought last year.
Not important.
But you're right. And then we had the...
Not important. Either.
Yes. And I want to say Bray Wyatt was champion, though. And they had all those championships defended. Now, Jinder Mahal, who a lot of people criticize as WWE champion when he won the title, was not a terrible champion by any means. The dude had legitimate heat. He knew what he was doing. I liked him as WWE champion. And then it was supposed to be Jinder Mahal versus Brock Lesnar in the champion versus champion match. Well, Brock Lesnar didn't want to fight Jinder Mahal. So what did they do? Less than a month before Survivor Series, they had AJ Styles beat Jinder Mahal to become WWE champion.
AJ wanted to have the title for over a year, and they had a great match.
Yep. The following year, it looked like it was going to be AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar again. So what did they do? Less than a month before Survivor Series, AJ Styles drops the belt on SmackDown to Earth's friendliest WWE champion of all time, Daniel Bryan, and we got Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Bryan. Now, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar. That was a very entertaining match. I enjoyed Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar. It was a very entertaining match. But this is now the third time in like 4 years that you've done this, where you changed one of your champions heading into Survivor Series because you didn't like the matchup for the champion versus champion match. And my biggest gripe about it is, then why did you take the title off of Drew McIntyre a couple of weeks ago and put it on Randy Orton so he could drop it 6 days before Survivor Series?
Well, one thing I'll say about that is my belief is they should have taken the title off McIntyre a couple of months ago when this storyline started, and then it would have been fine if he won it this week. But it's like Orton won it like a week or two ago, and it's like I guess it's fine if he's a transitional champion, basically just transitioning back to the champion you had. But Lloyd commented, he was like, they wanted to have McIntyre win the title in front of some sort of audience, aka the Thunderdome. So
I understand that, and my whole thing is that, and Lloyd also said Drew versus Roman is a fresh match. Not necessarily, because if you think about it, last year at WrestleMania, this is a WrestleMania 35 rematch now. We're dead. Because McIntyre fought Roman Reigns at Reigns' return WrestleMania after, beating cancer, and now we're going to get it again. Nothing.
So the thing that's different this time is they have
flip-flopped, whereas Roman Reigns is now the tribal chief and Drew McIntyre is now the
face of Raw, basically.
Yeah, he's what's the thing that they said?
Scottish psychopath.
He's no longer the Scottish psychopath. He's the Scottish warrior, I think it was, or something like that.
So apparently everybody who is from Ireland or Scotland is a warrior.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah. Anyway.
Interesting. Wow. But I mean, honestly, Chris Brown, does that really surprise you with a lot of the stuff that Vince McMahon has done? Just Vince McMahon has done, period. I don't even have to talk about any period in his existence. It is them not telling Drew McIntyre he was winning the title back Monday afternoon, not the most Vince McMahon thing that Vince McMahon could have done, except maybe turn the Undertaker into Eggman instead. Just saying.
If I can figure out a way to do it, I'm going to have a way where I put the Undertaker inside the egg and have him come out as Eggman. I'm going to try to figure out a way.
What happens tomorrow?
I'm going to be Eggman.
He comes out as Eggman. What if he comes out as Eggman tomorrow? I will fucking lose my shit.
Yeah.
But we won't.
That'd be great.
We won't. I don't want to talk anything else about what happened 30 years ago. We're just going to leave it at that.
At the Hartford Civic Center.
I will never forgive myself for that.
Well, yeah. So, and speaking of, well, I guess we could get into that later about the Undertaker's final farewell. But
I mean,
he did come out this week and say he really wishes he had a match against The Fiend. yes, he had a match against Bray Wyatt, but he's specifically talking Undertaker versus The Fiend. And maybe Undertaker's dropping hints of things that could happen tomorrow night. And I'm not saying a match, but a thing.
As the words of the legendary NBA basketball player Kevin Garnett once said in 2008, anything is possible.
Chris, I did not see the video of Taker on Instagram. I'll have to check it out after the show.
Yeah?
So
Same. I did not see it either.
So, yeah. All right. So, what do you want to get into next?
Oh, excuse me.
All right. So this week on NXT, they've officially announced War Games 4, and we have 2 War Games matches lined up, and it's happening 2 weeks from today.
Yes. The first War Games match.
Or is it 2 weeks from tomorrow? 2 weeks.
What they have decided they were going to do 2 War Game matches, like you said. They're both officially announced. The first one looks like it's going to be Team McAfee or against whatever the hell they're called and everything, which is the team of Pat McAfee, the GOAT Pete Dunne, and one of our personal favorite tag teams, Team 1-2, which is the team of Danny Burch and your boy Oney Lorcan, going up against the Undisputed Era, which is Roderick Strong, Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, and Adam Cole, baby! And I was waiting for the Undisputed Era to finally come out and like, I'm like, this is great. They came out a couple years ago. They were all heels, and yet Adam Cole is still he's still like the hottest star that they have down in NXT. Now he's flipped, and I'm really excited for this. I'm curious to see how this is going to go and everything. Oh man, it would have been so much better if there was a shit ton of people there. Because like them, filtering in the sound and all that shit is just crazy. And
I don't mind them filtering in some sound. Honestly, NFL does it, and it makes the games feel a little bit more realistic. Obviously, in Texas, like they actually have fans, so it helps with the ambience. Beyond that, so Lloyd does not like the idea of 2 War Games matches. To an extent, I understand what you're saying. It's just like, I don't mind seeing, I guess, like multiple like Hell in a Cell matches, but like at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. But in general, I think it waters down the gimmick. It's like, oh, well, we have Hell in a Cell coming up, so we need to have multiple Hell in a Cell matches. It's like, Hell in a Cell is supposed to be for a blood feud that needs to have like a definitive like end.
that's why I think Hell in a Cell should not have been like a exclusive pay-per-view. Because
the same thing goes with War Games here. It should be kind of like a blood feud, and they kind of sort of had built up this feud with McAfee and Adam Cole for several months.
Yeah.
And I think, for something like that, they built that up pretty well. But the stuff with Team Shotzi and Team Candice, I don't think they've quite done quite as well. And it seems like they're specifically like, well, we need to have a women's War Games match.
See, I'm the type of person that I have no issue with them doing like a second War Games match if it gives women the exposure and lets them have an opportunity. I thought that last year when they had the women's War Games match was a great match. It was a great match. Plus, you got the Dakota Kai turning on Tegan Knox, and it was great storytelling. And it's just I enjoyed that. I really did, because it was something different. You give these women these opportunities, so I have no problem with it. And if it was a second War Games match and it was like, Team Ciampa versus Team Velveteen Dream, then it's like, no, I don't need a second one of those. Now, if they're going to give me 2 women's teams, I'm on board with that.
But they have not built up like a women's feud where you're like, going, yeah, this needs to be settled in War Games. I don't think they haven't reached that level. Like, if they wanted to do it, I think it would have actually been better if they did like Rhea Ripley, Team Rhea versus Team like Raquel Gonzalez.
Right.
But they already kind of had their blow-off match with that, so they kind of And I mean, to some extent, shot their load.
And I think what really killed it for the setup is you're doing this Shotzi Blackheart and Candice LeRae, and it's kind of been like a quick put together type of thing because they've been kind of feuding. Because if you think about it, it was Shotzi Blackheart who prevented Candice LeRae from winning the women's title from Io Shirai at Halloween Havoc, and they've kind of been going back and forth before that. Candice LeRae ran over her tank and all that stuff. I think that they could have done a little bit better to build it up. Obviously, with the men's match, they've been setting this up for months because McAfee and
Cole had
Adam Cole, baby, have been building this up for months with the podcast, and he's coming out and attacking him at NXT and all
they
this
had
stuff.
a match. They had all sorts
They had a great
of
match,
things.
by the way.
But beyond that, I think the NXT folks, like if they were going to do Team Shotzi versus Team Candice, this honestly should have ended up on Survivor Series.
Yep.
But because of the COVID outbreak at the Performance Center, that's why we're not getting NXT for the Survivor Series or part of Survivor Series this year. Like that definitely seems like it would have been a better fit. And instead of having a War Games match, maybe they should have just had a elimination style match.
Well, and one of the things, because it's like you already know that Candice LeRae has been, this whole, her and Indy Hartwell helped her, has been helping her and all this stuff. So I get that concept. And the fact that they're teaming up with Dakota Kai, who's been with Raquel Gonzalez for a few months now, I get that. That team kind of makes sense with each other because if you think about it, Candice LeRae is their top heel, and Dakota Kai, in my opinion, is their second top heel. Because Io is kind of one of those, she's a tweener.
Right, just like Rhea Ripley is a tweener.
And I look at it like with that, and then it's like you got the women's team, and it's like, the whole Shotzi Blackheart and Candice LeRae going at it makes sense. But it's like you just brought back Ember Moon about a month ago to NXT after she had the Achilles injury. You just brought Toni Storm over from NXT UK probably about a month and a half ago as well. They're not really much in this feud. All they did was they had their match against Candice LeRae. I'm sorry, against Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai. And then, Candice LeRae came in there and they started beating the shit out. And it's like, all right, this is how we're going to build up War Games in 2.5 weeks. And I'm like, no, I don't get that. It wasn't really much of a build-up. You're just, here, we're going to give you these two, and who the fourth person is going to be, who the fuck knows.
Well, and a few weeks ago when we were talking about War Games coming, I thought that they were going to have it at a takeover, and I thought the takeover was going to be the weekend of Royal Rumble.
Right.
And I thought that's when it was going to happen, and would have given them more time to build up these feuds to make it feel like it was important enough to be a War Games match. But for whatever reason, they wanted to fast track it. It went from they weren't going to have anything to all of a sudden they announced oh, we're having a thing. So
yeah,
definitely feels rushed and could have been better executed for the women's match. But it is what it is, and I think both matches are going to 100% deliver. It's just the buildup has been not the greatest. So
Lloyd asked who we think is the fourth member of Team Shotzi. Is there really anybody that really stands out? I mean, they could do like an Io Shirai because they don't really need to have the.
They wouldn't put a champion in that match. I don't think. I think she'll have her own match,
which is very possible. The person I thought of it'd be a really interesting time to bring them in would be Tessa Blanchard. I thought about somebody like that. I mean, they could bring in somebody kind of like what they did, when they had Kevin Owens in the War Games match come in from the main roster to fight in NXT. They could have a situation like that happen.
Charlotte Flair.
It could be Charlotte Flair. They could have, Bayley or Sasha Banks could do it. There's a lot of different avenues they can go. I'd love to see somebody like, I think this would be the perfect opportunity for them to bring in Tessa Blanchard if WWE has completely put the women's revolution or Evolution pay-per-view on the back burner and not even discuss it. That'd be a time because nobody would expect it. But it's going to be interesting to see who they come up with for a fourth member.
Not that I'm a huge advocate for this, but what if we get Aaliyah from the Robert Stone brand? And Robert Stone figures out a way to get involved in the match, and I don't know. But Lloyd bringing up possibly Rhea Ripley as part of the team, it's certainly possible she could be part of this. And one thing, again, that felt strange and rushed was seeing that we had Rhea Ripley versus Io Shirai on NXT this week. And it's like, shouldn't this be for a takeover? Like, two of your biggest women superstars, and without a ton of fanfare, have them have a championship match and a damn good one on free TV.
Fantastic. It was fantastic.
But it definitely feels they did this match specifically because the rumors are Rhea Ripley is going up to the main roster, so she does the honors on her way out. So,
and Chris Brown had asked if Rhea Ripley does go to Raw. I don't know what show she'll end up on. I wouldn't be surprised she ended up on Raw. Do you expect her to be coming in as a heel or a face?
I expect her to. I'm gonna say heel. I'd love to see her and Asuka in a match.
Same, I would too.
I think that's a better fit if you're talking like style-wise versus going against like Sasha Banks. Sasha is a great performer, but like as far as like styles that mesh, it's like I think Rhea and Asuka would work better. Which
is funny too, because like I know that we were talking about the women's division in WWE and how the four horsewomen have been kind of at the forefront of it because Sasha Banks and Bayley could wrestle against each other. And it doesn't matter; they're always going to have a great match.
Just like Rene and the Usos.
Yeah, and and like Charlotte Flair is one of the top 5 performers in the company, let alone the women's division. And obviously, what Becky Lynch has meant. And the person that always gets, for me, the person who gets overlooked the most is Asuka. And it's like Asuka, in my opinion, is one of the better, if not the best performer in the women's division.
And even though her English isn't very good, I think her promos are really good because of the energy she has. And like, she doesn't need to say anything and you get exactly what she's saying or doing. She cracks me
When she hit Bayley, or when she hit Sasha last night with the "You Can't See Me" and went like this, I fucking died. I was like, this is the funniest shit. I'm like, Asuka's fucking fantastic.
She is.
She's awesome. She's going to be in the running for a Marquee Award at the end of the year, by the way.
So Lloyd saying, what if Lana brings Rhea in to help against Nia and Shayna? Not a bad idea.
That would be interesting.
Not a bad idea. So, but we'll see coming up because I just get the feeling that they like after the big shows to bring people up to Raw or SmackDown. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if I want to call it the main roster anymore. I mean, to me, NXT is on nationwide TV in the United States. So
NXT is my favorite show of all between AEW and of WWE. NXT is my favorite show. I love watching it. And it's because of the fact that I love the Undisputed Era. I mean, how many times have we, shot our hands up in the air and screamed Adam Cole at the top of our lungs? Baby. It's not even just on the freaking podcast. We go to the bars and do it. We go to sporting events and do it. It is just, I mean, there's the clip of you on our YouTube page of you doing the same thing.
From my roof.
And it's like, I fucking love Tommaso Ciampa. I mean, he's excellent at his role. And I love heel Ciampa.
Yes.
And it looks like, I think for War Games, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to get freaking Ciampa versus Timothy Thatcher. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
that's going to be a freaking bloodbath. Those two are going to beat the holy shit out of each other.
Yeah. So,
but it's like they have all these different people that are in there, and they're. It's just like I love NXT, and now that you add the element of Pat McAfee, who is a tremendous heel as a punter in the NFL. The dude just knows how to talk. The dude knows how to get a reaction out of people. He's the perfect heel. I'm sorry. The guy is a perfect heel. He does it better than any other outside source has done it other than maybe Kurt Angle, at getting a reaction out of fans. Like Ronda Rousey, just like I mean, for what she was a great in-ring performer and all that stuff, and she had like this aura of her because she's a bad bitch. But like when she cut those promos, she wasn't very good. Once she decided that she was going to do more of a heelish thing, yes, it worked out better. But Pat McAfee, right out the freaking door, he's just good at what he does. Kurt Angle's the only other person I could see that was like outside of like the professional wrestling realm to kind of just flip into the business and take off the way he did.
With McAfee too, he did an interview this week where he talked about like, yeah, don't give me a scripted promo. He's like, I am not the greatest. He's like, I don't read books. It's not that I get my information by reading things online. If you give me a script and I try to memorize it, it's going to sound terrible.
It's going to sound like Rob Gronkowski at WrestleMania.
And I'm going to just, he was like, they have given me a lot of leeway and let me do my thing. And, you know, I appreciate the trust Triple H has put in me. So McAfee has been unscripted. I dig that. And that's why McAfee needs to stay in NXT.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, speaking of scripted, Jericho did an interview this week where he talked about like when WWE started becoming scripted, and apparently the thing was Vince wanted like wrestling shows to be able to get the same number of viewers as Friends, the TV show Friends, and he was like, "Well, Friends has writers. We need to have writers." That was the reason. I mean, I also would put part of that on the fact that Vince McMahon took the company public and needed to make sure that people weren't going to say stuff that was going to get him in trouble and lose the company money. But yeah, apparently Vince wanted, somehow he believed that WWE was going to be able to get the same size audience as Friends had in its heyday.
That show is terrible, by the way. I hate Friends.
But about 25 million people a week would disagree with you.
You know who would be one of those 25 million that would disagree with me? My sister. My sister loved Friends. That's the only reason I knew anything about that show. That's the only reason I knew that Ross and Rachel were a thing. I will say this though. I liked Joey.
How you do it?
I like Matt LeBlanc. He's really good. He was the only person that was actually worth watching on there.
Yeah.
But
so anyway, that was the reason for scripted promos. Friends.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another little bit of news and notes from this week was that Zelina Vega, when she was fired, actually had to be escorted out of the SmackDown tapings. Like, she wanted to go talk to Vince about it, and he's like, no, he doesn't want to talk to you. And it's like, yeah, you know you've done something wrong. If he's like, no, I'm not going to see you. So Jessica agrees with you. She hated Friends.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah. I was always okay with it. I did not tune in purposely on any week. It just, Friends is on. All right. It doesn't offend me. Friends did not offend. So.
Friends was a terrible show.
Yeah.
Bunch of jackasses sitting around on the couch drinking coffee. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
25 million people watch that show.
Like every week. Anyway. All right. What next, Brainless One?
I mean, we did touch base on NXT. I know last night on SmackDown we got a returning. I don't know why they make a big deal about a returning Daniel Bryan a couple weeks after getting his ass kicked by Jey Uso, but
and then he went against Jey Uso and won.
Yeah. Very entertaining match. I love Daniel Bryan. I'm gonna have he's gonna be a very important person in my rankings all time.
And as good of a match as they had, Murphy and Rollins had a better match.
Oh my God! Why did you put that match?
Because I want to hear you talk about Kevin Dunn. But right now, because of the Thunderdome, we are not getting shots of the crowd. Thank you. But
there is, hold on. Okay. To be fair, Kevin Dunn's been doing this for a very long time. Obviously, I don't know how old Beavers can get to be, but Kevin Dunn's been doing this for a long time. He's been sniffing Vince's ass since like the 90s, or at least the 90s, if not the 80s. Twice in his existence, did he get it right where he panned to the crowd at the right time. The first time I could think of was when Ms. Girl that pissed off, and that's the same look that Kinsley gives us when we don't give her dessert, which is kind of funny because she looks like Ms. Girl too. The other time was when Brock Lesnar beat The Undertaker, and he had the guy exactly with the stunned look on his face. Those are the only two times in his 30 years probably of being in this industry where he got it right.
Building dams.
Oh, yeah. Well, obviously, we're not going to talk about dam building because we're talking about professional wrestling. He fucked up Edge's freaking return at Royal Rumble. He fucked up AJ Styles' debut at the Royal Rumble. That's just the two that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, there's been countless times. I mean,
shaky cam. Yeah, shaky cam. Thankfully, shaky cam is not completely gone, but mostly gone at this point.
I mean, the Mastiff, that was it, Dave Mastiff on NXT UK. I accept that one. That one's, I love it when they do that thing because it looks like he's like clomping in there, and it's like, yeah,
that's part of the gimmick.
That's part of the gimmick. I like that part of it, but like shaky cam, unless the building's actually shaking, no, it doesn't work like that. But anyway, so he is notorious for panning to the crowd to show crowd reaction for stupid things. Like when a random dude hits a random clothesline and they show it to like the girl in the 9th row in section 104 and she's just standing there with her picking her nose. No, nobody wants to see that shit. Like for surprise shit, like after a match is everything. Could you imagine when Eddie Guerrero won the title, if he had fucked up that moment when he's jumping up and going into the crowd? He's like, oh my God, I'm getting into the crowd. This is great. Thank you, Eddie. You know, type of things. But anyway, last night was no exception. So last night in the Buddy Murphy versus Seth Rollins match, because they're doing this stupid fucking storyline
that goes on forever and ever. But with all that being said, again, spectacular match.
Phenomenal match. I love
Put them in the ring at any time and they're going to have a great match. But
and it's funny too because like a little bit of a side note. I was talking to Nicole about this last night. And I talked to her because we're getting Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre, and she's like, "Well, what do you think about the fact that they changed it from Randy Orton to Drew McIntyre?" She's like, "I kind of wanted to see Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton at Survivor Series," and I said, "Well, you know, Nicole, I'm like, here's the situation. There's guys like Roman Reigns and John Cena. I know I've discussed this before, who are better fitted. Like John Cena is one of those guys who wrestles to the caliber of his opponent. That's why he won a couple of years ago my award for Match of the Year when he fought AJ Styles at the Royal Rumble. That's why he got a 5-star match when he fought CM Punk, because those are guys who can carry it. John Cena can't carry a match, even if he's holding
he can be okay.
But he's not
phenomenal.
No, you're right. He's not phenomenal, and he's not the best in the world either. But if you give him a bucket, he's not carrying a match.
Right.
Roman Reigns is one of those guys that he needs to fight somebody with a very similar type of style. That's why his rivalry with Braun Strowman was fantastic. I love that rivalry. Him and Bray Wyatt had great matches a few years ago. Roman Reigns, going up against Drew McIntyre is actually really good because they're both very similar, but Drew McIntyre can carry it. And when I was explaining to her that there's certain people like AJ Styles and CM Punk who can carry people to matches, a person like that comes to mind is Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins can carry just about anybody to a match. Murphy is a guy who's really good in the ring. So when you put those two in the ring against each other, you're getting yourself a quality match. And you're going to be like, holy shit, that match was really good. That was the case last night when they had their, I don't know if it's the blow-off or whatever it's going to be, because eventually Seth Rollins is going to be bye-bye because him and Becky are expecting their child very soon.
Yeah.
But
I'm guessing that's why this specific storyline is carrying on longer than it needs to, because they want to bring Seth to Babyville. So, but anyway.
So what ended up happening, because Rollins did have the upper hand at one point, he tried hitting him with a couple of curb stomps, but Murphy kept hitting him with the knee. What pissed me off the most about it was every time Murphy hit Rollins with a knee, the camera panned to Rey Mysterio's daughter. I was like, all right. The first time, I'm like, all right. I'm like, all right. Oh, of course, I have to show
No,
her.
she's there.
And then the second one, and they did the same thing, and I'm like, and then he hits Seth Rollins with his finisher, and then they show her all happy, and I'm like, bruh, I want to drive to Florida right now and beat the fucking shit out of Kevin Dunn. I do. I just give me 5 minutes alone with him in a fucking room and no consequences happen to me. Just give me 5 minutes with Kevin Dunn. Because he ruined that whole thing last night. He ruined it. And don't worry, Jay. Don't you worry about a thing. This is not the last time I'm going to bring it up on the podcast today either. Trust me, there's a very special place at the end of the podcast that I'm saving for Kevin Dunn. Because he will forever be. I know that I said that WWE booking, I shouldn't be doing that as much on a week-to-week basis where I blame WWE booking. Kevin Dunn will never, ever be excluded from the possibility of being my bad or brainless ever.
Right.
He deserves it. The only time he would be a good is if there's like a water main break somewhere and he builds the dam to save a town, then he'll get my good. Other than that, he'll never be my good.
All right.
And it just bothered me. And Jessica did bring up a good point. It does seem like they're going to be building towards a Aaliyah or Alia or whatever her name is. Aaliyah Mysterio Murphy wedding thing. If that's the case, I need Eric Bischoff dressed up as an old priest to just X-May type of thing situation. They're not going to do it.
They could have Brother Love officiate.
Please no.
Style.
Here's another guy. There's another guy that deserves a freaking slug to the freaking jaw. Bruce Pritchard.
Come on,
douchebag.
Come on.
He might love me, but I don't love him back.
Come on. He was the Undertaker's original manager. He should show up on Survivor Series.
Oh, sure he is. Just like the coked out Michael P.S. Hayes is going to show up too. Because they're like, oh, nothing says celebrating the Undertaker's 30 years than seeing Michael Hayes dressed up like a fat, fabulous Freebird. Michael Hayes built like fucking Bam Bam Gordy now, coming out dressed up like a fucking Freebird. Yeah, that's what I want to see. My favorite was, speaking of that for Survivor Series, everybody was talking about how Kurt Angle has been announced for Survivor Series, and they're like, I wonder what Kurt Angle's going to be doing. I'm like, really? They're celebrating 30 years of The Undertaker. You don't think that Kurt Angle's going to be there to celebrate 30 years of The Undertaker? It's fucking Kurt Angle, man. I'm like, they should have Shawn Michaels there, whether Shawn's looking at one camera or the other. It doesn't really matter. Shawn Michaels should be there. Obviously, Triple H should be there.
He's going to look at the camera that's panning to Aaliyah.
I need... Obviously, Kurt Angle, I mean, it's perfect. I would love to see Steve Austin show up tomorrow. I would love that. I will mark out because that's the GOAT right there. Ric Flair, although I don't think they're going to bust out Ric Flair and his 907-year-old ass to, for safety purposes and everything. But there's a lot of people they can do. So obviously we know that Kurt Angle is going to be there for that reason. I'd love to see Booker T come out there for that. I'd love to see Sting will come out. I am convinced, and I will get to that when we make our predictions, I am guaranteeing something that happens tomorrow with The Undertaker. But you're going to have to stick around.
Your Stone Cold Lead Pipe Block.
I don't know if it's my Stone Cold Lead Pipe Block, because my Stone Cold Lead Pipe Block is the head of the table, which is me on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Bang.
The tribal chief.
Bang. 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 All right.
Speaking of the tribal chief, it came out in an interview, I think it was Dave Meltzer, the messiah of wrestling industry, who,
No. Seth Rollins is the messiah.
No, he's the self-proclaimed messiah, is Dave Meltzer. He thinks that he's God and his word means more than anything else, when we all know that's a bunch of horse shit. Dave Meltzer came out and said that the original plan for Roman Reigns was this title reign wasn't supposed to last very long. It was supposed to be a quick title reign, which is normal for him. But right now, Roman Reigns is fucking killing it. I don't want to see him
a year and a half.
I would if he makes it all the way to WrestleMania as champion, I would be thrilled with that. And another thing that Nicole and I discussed last night was who I would like to see. Like, who's going to be the one that knocks this dude off the pedestal? He's going to rip through the fucking locker room. What would make sense is if somebody like Keith Lee went in there and took the title from him, because that would be perfect. Or Brock Lesnar.
Well, I mean, Keith Lee obviously is not on that roster right now.
No, but like he would be the perfect person. Somebody young and big and strong that can go in there and take out the freaking tribal chief. Like, I'd love to see Brock Lesnar come back and build up that whole, like, all right, so Paul Heyman's now with Roman Reigns, and Brock Lesnar doesn't have his advocate.
Yeah. Lloyd, the idea of Big E was something that I pitched several months ago on this show, not necessarily winning the title, but being the person to go against Roman Reigns next after Jey Uso. After Jey Uso had the original match with Roman and lost. So, and I almost feel that I think the end game here is we're going to get Roman Reigns versus his cousin at WrestleMania, but I think they want to wait until they actually can have fans before that happens. So I can foresee Roman Reigns having the title until whenever that WrestleMania happens. If they I think if they see that the vaccine is working and we can have a stadium full of people, I don't think it'll happen this year. I don't know if the vaccine will do enough. I can see it happening next year, and I can see Roman Reigns continuing the title reign through that, and then maybe the Monday after WrestleMania losing the title as returning Brock Lesnar or somebody else.
There was a couple of people posting out there that Otis Dosovich could potentially, who just got named to the SmackDown team, and I fucking lost my shit last night when he was put on the team because God only knows how much I love Otis Dosovich. But Otis Dosovich could get taken out tomorrow night at Survivor Series and get replaced with Big E, who should have been on the team. First of all, this is the least they could do for Otis Dosovich. They've completely fucked everything up for him over the last 6 months. At least let him just let him be on the Survivor Series team. Does Big E being part of it have to be that big of a deal? No, I don't think that Big E needs to be on the Survivor Series team. If that was the case, why doesn't he take out like Baron Corbin and take Baron Corbin's spot? Because at least Otis Dosovich has had a meaningful storyline over the last 6 months where Baron Corbin's just been Burger King 2.0.
Right.
You know, I mean, I have no problem with Otis being in that match. I really don't. And it's because you and I are probably the two biggest Otis Dosovich apologists out there, and we want to see him succeed, unlike Tucker, who's now a jobber.
Right. Lloyd, they're not going to put The Rock versus Roman on SummerSlam. Too big of a match that's never happened and will only happen most likely once.
Yeah.
Rock is getting up there in age. On top of the fact that like he's got I don't know how busy his movie and shooting schedule for like Ballers is right now, but I can only foresee like Rock taking a little bit of time off from being the highest paid and biggest grossing movie star in the world for a short period to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing against SummerSlam, but it is not the show of shows. It is not. You put Roman versus Rock on the biggest show.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Unless they were planning on, and again, this might be more of a Royal Rumble thing. If they had a match before that,
it would be at the Royal Rumble.
It would be at the Royal Rumble where Rock could possibly win the title and then defend it and lose it at WrestleMania to Roman. That's the only thing I can see. Yeah, I understand that SummerSlam's the second WrestleMania, but it's nowhere near that. To me, right now, the number 2 show is the Royal Rumble. That's why the Royal Rumble is now in baseball stadiums.
It's the number 2 show, and the Royal Rumble, in my opinion, is the biggest match of the year. Because whoever wins the Royal Rumble gets a title shot automatically.
So, I don't see them doing that. Unless Vince McMahon is like, we need to make SummerSlam big enough to be in stadiums. I don't see it happening, though. Royal Rumble has built up long enough where Royal Rumble, they did a decent job of filling up the stadium in January.
Yeah.
They would do a better job of filling it up if they had a marquee match like that. Or a couple of years ago when there was teasing of AJ Styles versus Shawn Michaels.
Yes.
In Texas. But, yeah. Huh. Mike Rainey thinks Otis is going to be future endeavored in the next month or so.
I don't see that.
Yeah, I don't see it happening.
Vince McMahon is a very big supporter of Otis Dosovich. Right now, he's eating a giant shit sandwich, but he's not going to be getting rid of Otis Dosovich. And I'll tell you right now, he because of the fact that Vince is a big fan of his, but the fact is that the fans all love Otis Dosovich right now. And in a situation like this, AEW is going to scoop him right up, and he's going to become a star for them.
Chris, Jungle Cruise was shot quite a while ago, so The Rock is not doing anything as far as shooting with that. It was supposed to come out this summer, and it just got pushed back. It's very possible he's not shooting anything right now. I know that Black Adam, they ended up, I'm not going to say that they've canceled the movie, but they more or less have said, like, we don't know when that's happening. So, anyway.
And it's I mean, the one thing they could do is, like, The Rock could come out as number 30 at the Royal Rumble and win that bitch. Instead of him and Roman Reigns, because that would be, and just like The Rock do the honors. Oh, hell, it's Vince McMahon. He'll probably put the belt back on The Rock. Don't say no, because anything is possible.
Well, it's not just WWE. It has to line up with The Rock, too.
Yeah.
So
I'm just saying, like, of him winning the title. I don't rule anything out.
Mike, as far as Zelina goes, so the things that I've been seeing and hearing about that is she was making more money from doing her social media stuff than she was for WWE.
Yeah.
And that's why she was like, well, I'm going to continue doing it. So she made a decision for herself and, spoke very loudly on her way out, but she has talked to SAG and has also, I believe, talked to Andrew Yang, who we brought up many times, talking about the ridiculousness of WWE performers being called independent contractors, but yet they sign away their whole life. I don't know how you can be an independent contractor and sign away your whole life to a company if you're not their employee. But beyond that, we mentioned a little earlier that, like, when Zelina was fired, like, she wanted to go talk to Vince, and Vince refused to see her, and she was escorted out of the building. So that's that.
Yeah. Yeah?
Yeah. All right. So I think that's most of wrestling for this week, and get Survivor Series predictions.
I'm just gonna go into a little spiel before we go into our predictions. Tomorrow is Survivor Series. Survivor Series is like the forgotten main 4 pay-per-view of all of the main pay-per-views. If you think about it, it's WrestleMania is number 1. It's either Royal Rumble or SummerSlam is number 2, and then the other one is 3, and then Survivor Series is number 4. Survivor Series for me was such a great concept years ago in like the 90s because it's always all Survivor Series matches. At the beginning, it used to be 4-on-4 matches where you had all the, team whatever versus team whatever. Where you had Hulk Hogan teaming up with the Big Boss Man, Tugboat, and, Jake the Snake to go up against Earthquake and Zeus. And I'm pretty sure Zeus did fight in the Survivor Series. And, there was other, situations like you had back in 1990 where you had a team that consisted of Dusty Rhodes, Coco Beware, and the Hart Foundation going up against the $1 Million team, which we saw the debut of The Undertaker. And I love the concept of Survivor Series. And then they kind of just did away with all that stuff because they had like the bragging rights and all that stuff. It's back up already. I've always enjoyed Survivor Series because it was something different. It was something that, it wasn't like what we used to see every year. And I enjoyed the Survivor Series pay-per-view. And the Survivor Series pay-per-view used to be, Thanksgiving night, if I remember correctly. So it was like you go and you stuff your face and stuff your face full of turkey and mashed potatoes and all that stuff. And then you would go and watch wrestling for 2.5, 3 hours.
Right, but they're not going to compete with that NFL, and they know that now.
Unless the NFL did something stupid that had like the Jets and Jaguars as
people would still watch NFL more than they. NFL preseason games get more viewers than the World Series does. People just love their football.
Yeah.
So
So I thoroughly enjoy Survivor Series every single time that it's on, especially when they do the whole concept. And I love it now where it's Raw versus SmackDown. Like I said, I wish they did a little bit more where if Raw had wins it like NXT did last year, that they should be the one that gets the main event at WrestleMania, and the same thing with SmackDown.
Sure.
So I'm curious to see how that all goes. But since we are in Survivor Series, which is tomorrow, I say we get into our predictions.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Say it with a little, yeah! That was a little too overblown.
Anyway.
Okay. So what's the first match we're going to get into?
All right, so we have a dual brand battle royal. So this is basically their way of getting everybody onto the show that they can. It's like, hey, I already have you in Florida and have you on one of the biggest shows of the year. Everybody I think who's a wrestling fan growing up who is a professional wrestler now would like to be on the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
So dual brand battle royal. I think there are a few outcomes with this one, but for me personally, I'm going with a dark horse here.
How about you pick a favorite and then a dark horse? We can do that.
Sure. All right. I would say my favorite, I think, would be Daniel Bryan.
Okay.
My dark horse is Daba Kato.
Interesting. I like that. I think for me, if the rumors are false about how Otis Dosovich could be the one that gets taken out of this match for the Survivor Series, and Big E is not part of that, I would say that my prediction would be I'm going with Big E would be my favorite to win the match.
Okay.
If he ends up being in that battle royal. My dark horse to win that match is going to be my dark horse to win the battle royal would be Slapjack.
I know you just wanted to say that, but I don't think...
That's why I kind of prolonged it as much as I could to get the Facebook feed back going, so that I could just tell everybody. So that I was kind of hoping that as soon as it went live, I could go Slapjack.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, "What the hell is he talking about?" He's brainless, so he doesn't know what he's talking about.
You know what, Chris? I think that's a damn good thought. He could see the Big E getting involved with New Day match versus Street Profits. Speaking of which, why don't we get into that? New Day versus Street Profits.
The fans.
It's going to be a lot of fun, that match. I can't wait.
And my favorite part about this is that Montez Ford and Kofi Kingston are one and the same. They are both very talented guys. They're both high flyers. They both do things that not a lot of people do. For me, I would have liked to have seen Angelo Dawkins and Big E because those two are very similar in their styles. Not to discount Xavier Woods by any means, but I'm going to go with the Street Profits because they've been built so well since they became the tag team champions. Nothing against the New Day, but they are the team between the two that if they lost the match, it's not that big of a deal if the New Day loses. I think that the Street Profits could benefit more from this victory than the New Day does.
Oh, so they definitely.
I'm going with the Street Profits.
I 100% agree. Street Profits win, and I don't know. I can't see Big E turning heel, but I can definitely see him getting involved in some way. Because I don't see him attacking the New Day. It just feels like, they could do heel Big E, but then that puts him, nobody's going to overtake Roman Reigns as the pardon the pun, top dog
right.
On SmackDown for a while. If they want to put Big E in what I feel is a better place to succeed, is he needs to stay as a face.
Right.
And if he turns his back on New Day, that's, that'll be very heelish of him. So I don't see that happening, but I agree. Street Profits definitely win this match.
And for the people who had missed out on the Facebook when we were having our issues with the feed, for the Battle Royal, Jay had picked for his heavy favorite to win would be Daniel Bryan, and Dabba-Kato is his dark horse to win it, and that's actually a pretty solid choice. And for me, I said for my favorite to win, I'm going with Big E. That's where he's going to win. He's going to win that one. And my dark horse, I did say Slapjack, only because I just wanted to say Slapjack. And if I don't say Slapjack at least once during the podcast, then I feel like my brain's going to explode. But in actuality, if I had to pick
I think you saw it on the road last night.
T-Bar.
Yeah,
I saw T-Bar.
T-Bar.
I was actually going to tell that story before the end of the podcast too, because that's just how I am. And I'm actually going to post a picture when we're done.
Yeah.
But I mean, in actuality, who I really think is going to be like my dark horse to win is MVP.
Okay.
I'll go with MVP. All right. So we did the tag team match.
All right.
Slapjack. Maybe that's what I should just do. Like at the beginning of the podcast, the first thing out of my mouth should be Slapjack.
Right.
And T-Bar.
All right. We have Bobby Lashley going against Sami Zayn, U.S. champion versus Intercontinental champion.
I'm going with Bobby Lashley.
Lashley wins this match, and I think it's going to be one of those things where Sami just runs from the ring.
Chris Brown says Lashley in a squash. I love it.
I could definitely see it being a squash, but part of me almost wants to say that like it's going to be one of those matches where Sami's like getting his ass kicked and he just runs away from the ring. That's what I feel.
What I think is going to happen is that Bobby Lashley's going to go in there. He's going to overpower him for a little bit, and then Sami Zayn's going to run out of the ring and try to get away, and then Daniel Bryan's going to come from behind, throw Sami in the ring. Bobby Lashley hits him with a freaking finisher, and the match is over.
Yeah.
So I could definitely the squash is very much in play for that match.
Oh no, it definitely can be. Definitely can be. So,
and
unless Slapjack comes out in Retribution, and
I just want to take this moment to announce how much I love Sami Zayn as a heel.
Oh, he's
just phenomenal. This is his best work is what he's been doing as of late. And I love the fact that he's also not scripted and he has creative control of what he can say. And it was the best decision they could ever have done with Sami Zayn.
Yes.
That and put the Intercontinental title back on him. I love that.
Right.
Sami Zayn equals GOAT.
All right.
Now the 9,846 person to be goated by the Brainless One.
Right. All right. So then we have the Team Raw versus Team SmackDown men's match. Team Raw is AJ Styles, Keith Lee, Sheamus, Braun Strowman, and Riddle.
Bro.
Winners versus Team SmackDown, which is Kevin Owens, Jey Uso, King Corbin, Seth Rollins, and the Dozer.
I'm going to say this. Sheamus has been fantastic on social media this week because he keeps talking about how wonderful AJ Styles is as a captain. He's basically been throwing a lot of shade at a lot of these people and everything. He's killed it very much. On paper, SmackDown or Raw definitely has the better team because they have three former world champions, a former NXT champion, and a guy who used to fight in UFC going up against a guy who was predominantly been in tag teams his entire career, had a pretty decent run with his cousin in their championship feud. Obviously Seth Rollins, I mean, they have the Messiah. They also had the Dozer, who was the Money in the Bank winner, and they had the King of the Ring, Baron Corbin, and that fat fucking piece of shit, cock-sucking motherfucker, cupcake-eating bastard, Kevin Owens.
Right.
I'm going with Team Raw.
Team Raw, no doubt, and Braun Strowman is going to destroy people.
On both teams.
So, and the only thing that can possibly happen with Braun Strowman here is he gets into a fight with his teammates and gets counted out. It's
gonna be a situation where him and Sheamus are gonna start building towards their feud going forward. I think I can see that happening.
So we may get something like that, but I still believe Team Raw.
Team Raw is gonna win because they have the best wrestler on their team.
So
Sheamus.
Right.
But no, I mean AJ Styles. I think AJ Styles is gonna. You got AJ Styles. I'm sorry. Raw is gonna win that match.
I can conceivably see that if they don't do the thing with Braun and Sheamus, that like Raw can run the board. That they could run the table with this one.
Oh, absolutely.
Could be 5-0. All right, so Team Raw versus Team SmackDown women's match. We got Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Lana, Lacey Evans, and Peyton Royce from Raw versus Bianca Belair, Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, Bayley, and Natalya.
Captain Bayley, which I called, by the way. I just wanted everybody to know that I knew that Bayley was going to end up on Team SmackDown and insert herself as the captain of the team. My gut was telling me that what was going to happen was that the Raw team was going to eliminate 80% of the SmackDown team, leaving Bianca Belair as the sole survivor left for SmackDown, and then have her rip through the Raw women's team. And either she was going to win the whole thing, or Shayna Baszler was going to tap her out at the end of it. But I'm really starting to think that Raw is going to win this thing, and that Lana is going to be the sole survivor for either team, because it would be the dumbest thing that they could do, and it makes the most sense because it's dumb shit that WWE can do. So with that being said, I'm going with Team SmackDown.
I agree, and I see Bayley and Bianca Belair being the survivors.
I love to see them swerve everybody and have like Liv Morgan be the sole survivor for Team SmackDown.
Yeah,
but I'm convinced that Liv Morgan's in there to eat the first pinfall for SmackDown.
Yeah. By the way, Chris Brown said he believes the SmackDown men's team is going to win. All right. So then we have Raw Women's Champion Asuka versus SmackDown Women's Champion Sasha Banks. We've seen this match a bunch lately. I'm not upset that we're seeing it again. Both people champions. I'm going with Sasha Banks. She just got a very big win. Asuka's been champion for a little bit of time now. And I think the momentum as far as like somebody, not that Sasha needs to win, but the fact that, you know, I think at this moment, the bigger spotlight is on Sasha. So
I'm going to say that Sasha wins because Carmella is going to get involved in the match and cost Asuka the match, because she's going to attack Sasha and Sasha's going to win by disqualification.
Okay. And Chris Brown also bringing up, like, Vince may have Sasha win just because she's a Mandalorian. He's done dumber things. Put Coco Beware in the Hall of Fame just because he was in a stupid video game.
I was waiting for it.
Worst decision.
Worst decision ever. Yeah. Comic book guy.
Yeah. Yes. All right. We got Drew McIntyre versus the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns.
Okay, there's a lot of like different moving parts on this one. This is like a trade in the NBA right now, where draft picks and players are moving all over the place. For me, what I think is going to happen is that Roman Reigns is going to win. Roman Reigns is probably going to win clean. McIntyre is going to be completely incapacitated. The Miz is going to go to try to cash in and eats an RKO.
Now, I can see that happening because when Miz tried to cash in on Orton, he had a Claymore kick. I don't feel that Miz will have his true legit cash-in moment soon. I don't believe. I think it'll be closer to.
Which is funny because
possible.
This is the 10-year anniversary of when the Miz cashed in the first time against Randy Orton in the exact same building.
Yeah.
So
Chris Brown saying that he thinks that possibly we see Edge at Survivor Series. Yeah. I'm wondering if we see Edge somewhere else. Possibly we see Edge at the Final Farewell.
Yep. Because he is one of the Undertaker's greatest rivals, if you think about it.
He is. There's SummerSlam Hell in a Cell match where Undertaker has sent him to hell.
Yep.
Their WrestleMania match where the Ultimate Warrior, a.k.a. Little Nate, ran down to the ring to count the almost 3 count, but the Undertaker kicked out.
Edge cashed in his second Money in the Bank briefcase on the Undertaker as well. I mean, it's a legendary feud.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Undertaker, I think that's my last prediction that I said I was going to make. It's not my Stone Cold lead pipe lock, but Undertaker's going to come out. They're going to celebrate him the way that they do.
Final
And
farewell.
then all of a sudden the lights are going to turn off and it's going to go red. And all of a sudden we're going to see the Undertaker in a mandible claw from the Fiend.
I thought you were going to say Gangrel.
So I now think is All Elite, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe he is a trainer for them.
But we will see the Fiend get involved in the whole Undertaker farewell.
Undertaker kind of teased it a bit by saying, I'd like to have a match with the Fiend. And if the Undertaker is staying true to his word that he is no longer wrestling, I think he still wants to do some business with the Fiend.
Yes.
So I think that could be fun. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, everything with the Undertaker, because like you said, they'll probably do something up, similar to with Ric Flair, where they had everybody from his past come and show up, and I think we're going to see the mayor of Knox County show up.
I believe he is
so
locked for that.
So I think it'll be one of the cooler segments that they can do. I don't think even Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn can fuck this up.
Oh, you'd be surprised, Jay.
As you like to say, Kevin Garnett.
I said anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
And I can guarantee you this: we're going to see Foley tomorrow too.
I'd like to see it.
I mean, if you think about it, he was the Undertaker's greatest rival in WWE. Either him or Kane are the greatest rival.
I mean, he faced Kane 3 times at WrestleMania, so yeah.
And he almost killed Mick Foley, so my God, that's gotta be Kane.
Well, Chris Brown, honestly, I think tomorrow, with the fact that it's the Undertaker's final farewell, if it truly is, Brother Love needs to come out. Brother Love was his original manager.
Ted DiBiase needs to be there too, because Ted DiBiase was the one that called him the Undertaker instead of Kane the Undertaker.
Now, I don't think that's enough of a reason to bring in DiBiase. I don't think so.
Anything's possible. I just like saying that, I guess.
Yes, you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, all right. So that is the card.
Pretty solid.
Yeah. Do you have a match in particular that you're most excited for?
Do I have a match in particular? Oh yeah, that's the Street Profits and the New Day.
All right.
That's the match I'm looking forward to the most. I am intrigued. Don't get me wrong. I am intrigued by Team Raw versus Team SmackDown for the men's side as well. But the match that I'm most looking forward to tomorrow, and if they were smart, they would make it the curtain jerker, would be the New Day versus the Street Profits.
I'm pretty sure that is going to happen.
I hope
the Battle Royal is probably going to be pre-show.
That's my guess too.
So, and by the way, the pre-show tomorrow starts at 5 Eastern Standard Time in the United States.
It's a King Kong Bundy tomorrow. 5 o'clock.
So, all right. All right. I think it's time for our good, the bad, and the brainless.
In the body.
Yeah.
That's what I did there. So what is your good for this week?
You know what? I'm going to go with Moxley and Rene Paquette announcing the new arrival coming to the Moxley clan. So that's what I'm going with.
Very good, very good, very good. My good for this week, and I was actually going to go that route too, but then I realized that I had a feeling you were going to go that route too. So I came up with an alternate, and that's Otis Dosovich getting added to Team SmackDown last night. I was fucking thrilled as shit for that. I fucking love me some Dozer. So the fact that he is on Team SmackDown, even though they had that corny shit with him and Chad Gable after he made the team and everything, I was like, I'm still happy. Give me the Dozer. So Otis Dosovich gets my good for this week.
All right. So my bad for this week. It's not that it was the worst, but Why did they have to have a contract signing on SmackDown last night? It's champion versus champion. The title's not on the line. You don't need to have a contract signing. You could have just had Drew McIntyre show up at SmackDown and call out Roman Reigns. I did like, the stuff that they talked about how, Drew, you're just the secretary, dude. Like talking down to him as if like, hey, I'm tribal chief.
You're the guy they get when they can't get me. I was like, oh shit. I fucking love it.
But I love that segment. Like,
Roman killed it last night.
But it didn't need to be a stupid contract signing.
Agreed.
It just felt silly.
And I love the fact that right after that, they did the whole Sasha and Asuka thing. And I mean, the way that they did it, because they didn't do a contract, they did 2 contract signings, I probably would have shot myself.
Right.
But I mean, the first one was really stupid, and it was just stupid. That's all I'm going to say. For me, the bad goes to, and you're going to be surprised by this one because I have a very special brainless this week. My bad this week goes to Kevin Dunn because he's just bad. I mean, you just completely ruined that whole thing. I mean, how many times did you want to show? I mean, I'm pretty sure he just showed another clip of Aaliyah freaking Mysterio again. I'm convinced of it. So that's I guess my bad. It's just Kevin Dunn, and Kevin Dunn will never, like I said, ever be excluded from my bad or brainless at any given time during any given week, until he fucking just gets future endeavored and goes and just builds dams in his retirement.
Right.
So, had to get that out there.
Okay.
What's your brainless for this week?
Honestly, I'm like, I don't know if there was anything that was super, super brainless where I'm like, there was just a lot of stuff that I was kind of like, but just because I hate the field so much, I'm going to go with WWE doing Thunderdome at Tropicana Field. It's the worst field. I'm sure they'll try to make something interesting of it, but like with the way the seating is there, like where are you going to put the cameras?
Clearly in the Ray tank.
There is going to be a Ray tank camera, and it's going to drive me nuts because it'll have nothing to do with anything.
I know.
But what I would like to see is if they do have the Ray tank, I wish they should take a cue from AEW and use the field they have. AEW was very good, like, hey, we owe the Jacksonville Jaguars in that stadium. Why don't we use that stadium as something for our shows? Mm-hmm. Put Rey Mysterio in the Ray tank.
I need Ray in a Ray tank full of Rays.
Yes.
I was just going to pitch that idea, too. That's kind of funny.
But
Ray versus a Ray in a tank full of Rays in the Rays stadium. Yeah, I like it.
But just I don't see how they're going to pull it off. But you know what? If Kevin Dunn can build a dam every week, perhaps he can figure out a way to make this work.
Yeah.
Chris Brown saying the McIntyre Roman Reigns promo from last night.
Okay.
That was as good.
I have a very special brainless for this week. And like I've said before in the podcast, there's nobody that is excluded from any portion of this thing. And since they are celebrating the Undertaker's 30 years of being in WWE, because he debuted 30 years ago at Survivor Series at the Hartford Civic Center. And everything that came about it, like it's the greatest career, the greatest gimmick, and all that stuff. And what a monumental moment that was. Because you don't get somebody as legendary or as meaningful of a character than the whole Undertaker. Because the Undertaker is the greatest gimmick of all time. Except for maybe like Gorilla Monsoon, because it's a fucking monsoon of gorillas.
Right.
But 30 years ago, which they just celebrated the anniversary 3 days ago on November 18th, which was when he made his actual debut. The Undertaker debuted 30 years ago on November 18th at the XL Center. Now, back then known as the Harvard Civic Center.
I know where you're going with this one.
A certain 7-year-old child, his father bought tickets to the Survivor Series. The child's father did not know. The child did not know until his father told him about a couple of years ago, or within the last couple of years, that it was the night that he got himself so excited for the show, because the child had a tendency of, when he found out he was going to sporting events, he would get himself so excited, bounce around like a fucking asshole, that his stomach would hurt and then not want to go. And his father was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to still go anyway. So the fact that the child, the 7-year-old child, and his 7-year-old child's father and his stepmother went to the show because his stepmother was a fan of Rick Martel and the boys
should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yes, and the boy's father's favorite wrestler, Roddy Piper, was also wrestling. And that child, who deserves to be the brainless for this week, because 30 years later, I will never forgive myself for being as brainless as I am. Because if you all think that this thing was just something that I put together 4.5 years ago when we started doing this podcast, and I was the brainless one, just physical proof how brainless I've been throughout my entire life. The brainless one, on the 200th episode of the podcast, deserves his own brainless for this week, because 30 years ago, if I could get a time machine, I would beat the fucking shit out of myself. A 7-year-old me.
Great, bully yourself, right?
Hey, I'd be like AEW.
Right.
Or Vince McMahon. Or the Ryback. But I give myself the brainless for the fact that I missed out on the debut of the greatest wrestling gimmick in WWE history, the Gobbledygooker.
Eggman.
Yeah. I missed the fact that WWE Hall of Famer Coco Beware was the first person to eat a pinfall from The Undertaker.
Eat a tombstone.
Yes, eat a tombstone and get pinned at Survivor Series 1990. I will never, ever, ever forgive myself for that.
Again.
Ever. It's going to be on my tombstone. It's going to say brainless one. It's not even going to say Robert Guy. It's going to say brainless one. April 18th, 1983 to whenever I fucking finally expire from this world. And it's going to say, this dumb fuck was brainless enough to miss The Undertaker's debut November 18th, 1990, Survivor Series, Harvard Civic Center, when he could have been the Eggman.
Right. All right. So Chris Brown chimed in with his brainless, saying the continuing fallout of the Zelina Vega for refusing to get rid of her OnlyFans and Cameo, and I believe Twitch accounts.
Yes, the Twitch is what she was the big one that she did not want to get rid of, was her Twitch. Because she said even her Twitch account alone made her more money than what WWE was paying her. And I really don't think that this is going to be the last that we talk of this either. We're going to be talking about this a couple months down the road when
Biden is in office.
When Grandpa Joe takes over as president of the United States, even though he's probably going to think he's either vice president or a state senator.
Yeah, and kiss some people appropriately and touch them inappropriately, Yeah. But, he could possibly do the right thing for the independent contractors and make them effing employees of WWE. Or if they are independent contractors, make sure that they really are just like an AEW, where they could go out and do other things that aren't related to AEW. And so,
although AEW has been kind of like clamping down on the outside stuff due to Corona, obviously in a situation
that's different. That's different. Don't even bring it into it. Don't even talk about it.
I was about to say that's the only difference, is that they're looking for the safety and well-being of all their employees. So they're making sure there are people that do shit like that. But that's the only way that But everything else that AEW does is fine. But anyway,
no, even AEW doing that's fine. And
yes. And then that's it.
Yeah.
If you like what you've seen, whether you are a first-time listener or watcher or somebody who has been a OG, kind of like Chris Brown has been for quite a few years, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Periscope, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube at the letter T, the letter H, the letter E, the letter F, the letter N, MARKS, the F and Marks. If you like, follow, and subscribe to us. We will do the same back. It has always been our mantra.
Right. And make sure when we go live on Facebook, that you set up the notifications for when we go live, that you will be notified, so that way you can tune in and join in with the conversation every week. And that's it, facebook.com/alleelitemarks. So, all right, yeah, definitely we've hit everything.
Wait, no. Wait, there is one more thing that we need to do. It's a shame that Tommy,
It's a shameful thing.
that F and Mark's Lobsterhead, F and Mark's Hall of Famer Tommy isn't here for his favorite part of the podcast, because it is the 200th episode, and it is the only person to appear in all 200 episodes of the F and Mark's podcast, and that's because today, November 21st of 2020, F and Mark's Hall of Famer Curtis Axel, for 1,934 days, is still alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble.
Yeah. All right. So for episode 200 of the F and Marks podcast, I'm Jay.
And I am the brainless one. Make sure y'all mark out
With your guac out. See you, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in.
Enjoy the Survivor Series.
Yeah?
And I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yeah?